Welcome to NPK's podcast. We'll be giving you an introduction to growing today.
And here in the studio again today we've got
Stephen,
Jay
and Thomas. Right, introduction to growing then.
Okay, so last week we were talking about hydroponics, and basically it was an introduction to what hydroponics is. This week we're giving you a very brief general overview about growing.
Because let's say some people don't even know how to grow a plant. You know, I could go to some of my friends and said, yeah, look after that plant. They wouldn't know what to do with it, how to water it, whether it needed light, whatever. So let's talk about what it takes to actually grow any type of plant.
So what's the starting phase? Every plant starts as a seed.
Yeah.
We propagate, we germinate.
So when we propagate, basically that's like a greenhouse effect sort of thing. When we put small plants into an incubation chamber to give them a high humidity level, so it stimulates them growing, because they're basically little toddlers, and the greenhouse is like a nursery, and they'll be safe in the nursery while we nurture them, get them ready to go into adult life.
You said high humidity. What would you say is the best humidity to keep your seedlings at?
Between 70 and 90%.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely.
We have Jay as well. What's your experience with propagation? What's your favourite style of propagation?
Favourite style of propagation?
Well, I know the home box has a propagation tent, doesn't it?
It does. We've got a couple of propagation tents.
Okay, so
When we're talking about ways of propagating, what are we taking cuttings or
No,
using rock wool?
propagating. When you're putting seeds in, do you like to put them in rock wools or jiffies, or do you like to put them in tissue?
right, so we have propagation, which is basically the beginning of a plant's life, the growth cycle. But propagation is just a few weeks before the growth cycle actually begins, because you need to get a plant up to a stable state where it can go into the environment ready for its adult life, and it can produce flowers or fruits or whatever it may be. So we have propagation, then we have a growing period. Now plants, they grow for a bit. The different plants do different things through the growth period. Basically what they're doing is they get into a sustainable size. Some plants give out small flowers to let you know that they're about to need pollination. So i.e. bees, if you have plants indoors, you might need to self-pollinate, so you may need what are them things, Stephen, that you used a little
I
brush?
use an artist's brush, but you can also use things like basting brushes. Just anything with bristles replicates a bee's legs. Go along your plants and self-pollinate them. Give them a little tickle.
Yeah, so these being tickling plants, basically.
Yeah.
And that's just to pollinate the plants, because you've got to remember that when plants are outside, Mother Nature does this for us, i.e. through bees and various other little insects. But when you've got your plants in a controlled environment indoors, you have to replicate this, or your plants are not going to pollinate and you're not going to produce any fruits or flowers. So basically, in a nutshell, when we grow any plants, we put them in some form of media, i.e. it could be soil, it could be cocoa, it could be pebbles, it could be rock walls, it could be hydroponics. The list is endless, or you could make a mixture of a few of those depending on what your needs are. Some could have peat in, basically all of these things allow more or less water to be retained, a faster drying out period. Basically it's down to how you want to grow your product, and also homing in on what particular plant or fruit or vegetable you're growing. Each one of them have special requirements. Some like more water, some like less light. So that's something else.
That we learned with the tobacco, isn't it? We were growing tobacco, we placed them in a propagation tray with some soil and propagated them like most of the varieties of plants. What we later learned after a month of waiting for these tobacco seeds to pop was that they actually require a little bit of light to germinate. This is different to most seeds, isn't it? Most seeds like to have complete darkness.
I found the tobaccos were pretty difficult to actually germinate, get through, and then even once we had them small plants established, they still took a long time, because we didn't understand the plant, if I'm correct in saying that, Stephen. We didn't understand it, we hadn't researched it properly, we just got a bunch of seeds and thought, hey, let's do this, and yet we got them to pop, but we struggled for a while. Plant took quite a while to actually start establishing a good root system, but eventually we've got there, and now we've got fully matured flowered tobacco plants that we have now harvested, and we have drying and curing right now.
So some are still in the allotments.
Yeah.
We're going to try and get some more seeds out of those in the allotment.
Yeah.
Get some more tobacco plants grown. And basically the lesson that we've learned is do your research on whatever variety of seed that you get. Do your research on the conditions that they like and how long it takes to germinate. We were going to do some monkey orchids in September, but they take 18 months to germinate. Very, very hard plant to grow, so we may have to choose a different orchid. But just do your research.
Definitely. Always do your research on your plants.
Just a quick question: do seeds need nutrients? Do you need to feed the
No,
seeds nutrients?
no, because the thing with the seed is, with any plant, its basis in life is to grow, to form a flower or something that's going to deliver seeds to the floor again. So this plant can live again. It's all about these plants living again. So they all do it in different separate little ways, and the majority form a seed pod. So at the end of the plant's life cycle, this pod opens, it drops its seeds on the floor, and then these germinate themselves, hatch again, and then there's the life cycle of the plants continuing.
I think the best way to visualise that is, they're called dandelions, and you used to pick them as a child and blow them, and all the seeds would scatter everywhere.
Yeah.
Well, that's Mother Nature's way of getting that plant to reproduce again. All those seeds will fly possibly tens of miles, hundreds of miles, and start their new life as a plant.
Yeah.
So once you've got your seeds to germinate, what's the next stage from there?
Well, just also back to the seed. The seed is, when these seeds are formed, it's like a whole new world inside this seed. The plant has given enough energy and everything in its life, so it's ready to burst into action. It doesn't need any nutrients. Any nutrients in the early stages will just hinder the plant's growth. So basically, you're just going to let the seed pop. Once the seed pops, then you're going to keep this small plant in propagation. You're going to nurture it because it's very delicate and fragile. A lot of plants need a hardening off period, especially if you're going to put them outdoors. If you've got them indoors, or you're propagating them indoors and you want to put them outdoors, you're going to have to harden them off. And general way to do this is to have a space outdoors that isn't affected by the wind. Now, what it allows you to do is either take the plant out of the propagation when it's due, and to put it in this space where it's not going to be attacked by wind, so it can get used to the outside environment. If it starts to droop or hinder itself a little, you take it back out from there and you put it back into propagation. Repeat this process over a few days, and then soon the plant will have hardened off and become completely happy in its new environment.
Okay, and by hardening off, we just mean adapting it to a new environment that's not used to. So we go from a perfect environment within a tent, perfect temperatures, very little strong winds, perfect humidity, and then we take it outside into our lovely British weather where we have 5 degrees, lots and lots of rain, and lots of wind as well.
And a load of pests.
Yeah, and it just hates it, and they droop and they
Yeah.
die. So hardening off is essential if you have propagated indoors or you've done any sort of growing indoors. So moving on, we've germinated our seeds.
Okay.
What's the vegetative growth? What's that?
Well, basically, it's just a plant. Once you've germinated, a plant needs to grow. It needs to grow up so it's ready to move into its flowering period. So it needs to get to its accurate size or its preferred size. So that's all that is a growing period. And basically, a growing period is a lot longer light period than a flowering period. Light periods normally range between 12 to 24 hours with the growth cycle. Flowering cycles can range between 8 to 14, 15 hours.
So just as the days are getting shorter through the summer, plants think I quickly need to get some.
Well, the type of light, the colour of light changes as well, because in the grow period it's preferably used a white light, HID, something like that. But when you move into the flowering period, the sun becomes a lot deeper, far red, so we use deeper colours to simulate that.
Simulate the flowering.
Yeah.
We'll be going into a lot more depth on all these subjects.
We're just touching on it just as a simple introduction, just so people can understand that you can grow simple plants, get started pretty easy. So a couple of pots, bit of soil. You don't need a state-of-the-art system to grow a plant. A plant, if you adhere to its simple conditions, food, water and light, a plant will grow efficiently well.
Pretty much everywhere. A couple other things to touch on is once it's been in propagation, you need to choose a media or a medium to grow in. You can have soil, cocoa or hydro, as well as a whole host of other mediums. What's your preference?
Me personally, I prefer cocoa. We use a bottom feed, so we feed the tray at the bottom and the plant sucks up the water through the medium. Some people prefer to use soil. Got a few friends who use a lot of soil. They top feed their soil. Difference between those two: cocoa, it doesn't hold any nutrients, doesn't store, doesn't have a memory basically, where soil does. So over fertilisation be a lot more common with soil mixes. However, I prefer to use cocoa, but there's a lot of other things out there on the market. There's a cocoa pebble mix, which is a 60-40 mix. You can get that in a 50-50 mix. You can add additional stuff stuff to it. You could just use pebbles on its own. Depending on how you want to grow, do you want to grow in a pot? Do you want to grow in a hydroponic system? Do you want to make your own system? Where has this got to go? The size of the place, the size of the space, the budget you have, what you want to do, the type of plant you want to grow. All of these are key factors in it all. But you can start off with one pot, bag of soil, and away you go. And that's what I'd recommend to anybody who's never grown a single thing before. I'd recommend get a few pots, a bag of soil, throw your plants in, and watch the magic happen.
These things that we're touching on as well, these should be making you think about your own growing at home. If you've never grown any before, hopefully we're sparking a bit of interest. If you do quite a bit of growing, hopefully we're firing up your imagination or maybe trying out a new system. If you're in soil, give cocoa a go. If you're in cocoa, give hydro a go. Each has the benefits and the negatives, and we'll be touching on them next week.
If you're popping by our store also, we have a large potted garden outside our store. We've got a wide range of, we've got some corn on the cob, we've got some cauliflowers, we've got some cabbage, we've got some beetroot, radish, peas.
We have gherkins as well, don't we? Just before we finish, got a bit of homework for you to go and find out. You need to find out, one of the first things you need to do as a grower is find out if you're in a hard water area or a soft water area. And by hard water, what I mean by that is you have nutrients already in the water. You have calcium and deposits that they use in hard water areas because the water's been filtered through certain types of rock. Soft water areas such as Liverpool, you don't have that. You have very clean, neutral water. So to test what sort of water you're in, you're going to go and have a look in your kettle, see if you can find any white deposits. If you do see them, you know you're in a hard water area, and if you don't see them, you know you're in a soft water area.
So let me get this right again, Stephen. If we go home, we look in our kettle and we see that white lime scale at the bottom, that instantly tells us we're in a hard water area. Now, the benefits to knowing whether you're in a hard water or soft water area can be quite complex, but just in a nutshell, there's a lot of various equipment that you can use to monitor and measure plants and how they feed, and this becomes relevant in the future. So it's a first little piece of homework, and we'll address hard water and soft water in depth and how we can utilise that in our growing techniques.
Sounds good. Thank you for listening, and we'll be back with you next week.
At NPK Technology in Liverpool, we pride ourselves on providing you with the products you need at the right price. Once more, if the products you want aren't in stock, we'll order them in for you. And if you don't know exactly what you're looking for, we'll happily point you in the right direction. NPK Technology Liverpool, going out of our way to help you grow. Visit www.mpktechnology.co.uk.
Life is good.